All right, let's test this out. We're trying the lap count live on the CITIUS Mag YouTube channel. So I'm Chris Chavez, joined by Kyle Merber, the lap count editor-in-chief, and then we've got Mac Fleet, the director of all things video here at CITIUS Mag. And we figured in a car ride over the past weekend that we would give this a shot where we kind of just do not a reading of the lap count, but in a way hit at the big topics from this week's newsletter. For people who aren't familiar, the lap count is a newsletter that Kyle puts together every Monday and Tuesday night that goes out first thing Wednesday morning, that hits at all the biggest stories in track and field for you to kind of, it's a hard sport to follow. There's so many stars, there's so many meets and competitions, and he kind of gives you all of the best in one place for you to stay up on all of the news and big storylines. So, Kyle, we are 77 weeks into the lap count, right? And haven't missed a week. So how does this feel? Like I said, now just shift to another pivot to video in a sense as well and add this new component to it.
Yeah, well, I feel like this is something we've been talking about doing for such a long time now, because not everyone wants to sit down and read 3,000 words every Wednesday. And so, for the audience that still wants to follow what's going on, every week in track and field, which is difficult. There's so much going on. There's races all over the place that you don't hear about until, days after. So, we wanted to get in front of them on the YouTube audience's side of things for those who aren't into the written word.
So we can also tap into our audience because we like going live on the YouTube channel. We love interacting with people within the YouTube chat. We also just set up a voicemail line, and you can see the phone number down below where you can call in, leave us a voicemail, and we'll answer it on the next show. Ask us anything, whether it has to do with some of the hot takes, if you want to pick our brains about any sort of race or an event that's coming up. So hit that voicemail line. Tweet at us, and get the chat going. So let's start off with some of the topics that we've got going this week. We'll start off with a little bit, is it a somber note to have another dear friend of your generation of track and field retire? We're going to start off with Derrick, the Bowerman Track Club star, announcing his retirement. He did an exit interview with Let'sRun.com. He finishes his career with personal best of 13:08 for the 5K, 27:31 for 10K on the track, 2:12 for the marathon. But I guess like his best accolades were definitely as a cross-country runner, 14-time All-American at Stanford, 3-time U.S. cross-country champion, was part of that silver medal team that finished second at the 2013 World Cross Country Championships. But you guys have known him from way back in the high school ranks. We'll start with Kyle, I guess. Like Derrick retiring, the last one from the Real Main is now done.
Well, it's funny when I saw that Let's Run had posted the interview with Chris and his exit interview of sorts. I texted Chris. I was like, I didn't know we were doing interviews. Like you told me months ago you were retiring. I didn't know it was public. And so when I think of Chris, it's just consistency throughout his career. It has always been a guy that just shows up. I mean, 14-time All-American. I'm sure he wanted an NCAA title there along the way, but he was in a tough generation. But, just from high school through to the pros, just one of the good guys on the circuit. Mac, can you say so?
No, Chris, just amazing competitor. He tended to always show up, especially earlier in his career. And I think like a lot of us, like near the end, just found some difficulties. Like you deal with obstacles and sometimes you can kind of get thrown and sometimes it's really hard, to sort of bounce back after a few years of injury and whatnot. And I'm sure he wanted his like marathon career in his twilight years to be a bit better, but I don't think he has anything to be ashamed of. Like phenomenal career front to back, I'd say.
You guys go so far back that we've got some like throwback photos here. I guess like Mac, if you want to pull one up, Kyle, can you share the story as to what is going on in this picture?
Where are we? Is this in the Reebok Boston Indoor Games? Me, Mac, and Chris hanging out. So in high school, they invite the youngins out to race amongst the pro fans, get a little taste of what the future would be like. And so, it's when Mac and I met, and Chris as well.
No,
what's the other one
good.
that we've got?
We've got one more. We've got
We
one
look
more.
terrible.
I know. We all look horrible. This is from the entire crew. Which is everyone retired from here? I think so.
It looks like it, right?
Some of these guys retired years and years ago.
It was about this. Some people retired after this race, I think.
Yeah. Some familiar faces would be like Luke Puscadra there. Is that Corey Leslie, the Under Armour coach?
Yep.
So people stay involved within the sport in other capacities. So Kyle, I guess the question, and someone posted this on the Instagram that we put up, which was, of the real main people, who is the most likely to come out of retirement?
I think, like, retirement, the most likely to continue running is definitely me. Like, I'm over 2 years in, and I still do workouts all the time. I don't know if we're calling that out of retirement anytime soon, but I don't think Riley runs that much anymore. Eric and Mark, pushes the baby stroller.
The other question that so many people asked was sort of, how can they watch the real main? And it's one of those things that's sort of like, if you know, you know. Sam Parsons is the first person to credit that, Tin Man Elite storytelling takes a lot of inspiration from that original documentary. It's nowhere to be found online. So for the people wondering how can they watch this, they can't.
You can't watch it. Eric Van Ingen, the director, he's just not that proud of it. Like, it was a college project of his, and it kind of got blown out of proportion a little. And so it's in the archives. I haven't seen it in years and years, and I feel like people are constantly putting pressure on Eric to do a release. Maybe one day when he wants some extra cash, he'll go out and do it. I keep pitching you on the idea of doing some sort of project behind it.
I think we will, just down the road. Once the marathon season comes down, we'll try and see what we can do. All right, moving on to the second topic. This wasn't written about at length during the lap count because the news broke, I think, as you were kind of wrapping it up. Anna Hall, the NCAA champion in the heptathlon and the World Championship bronze medalist, has decided to forego the remainder of her eligibility with the Florida Gators to turn pro, signed with Doyle Management, and then inked a deal with Adidas. Honestly, I'm not all that surprised that she chose to sign with Adidas. I think there's two major players when it comes to the multi-events. It's obviously Nike and Adidas, because they have the flexibility to make the different types of shoes. I actually think that there's like an underlying storyline here that also comes into play. The fact that Jackie Joyner-Kersee years and years ago is a lifetime, I believe, Adidas ambassador. And now, you kind of get to add the current U.S. multi-star to that roster of athletes. So, great for Anna Hall. It's very funny because she chose to turn pro and announce this the same exact week that her boyfriend, who is the NCAA champion in tennis, also decided to turn pro. He got like a New York Times profile. He's apparently like the next big deal, possibly a top 5 tennis star down the road. So good for them. Kyle, what did you make of this news?
I'm just excited about Anna Hall as an athlete, and so going pro does seem like the next step. I've always been so impressed by her ability to run the 800 as competitively as she does, and also the 400 hurdles. And look, the multis doesn't much except for when an American is among the world. Yeah, and I'm guilty of that as well at the World Championships. If the U.S. contingent isn't up there vying for gold, then I'm less interested than in the days of Ash Neaton and Brian Clay and Trey Hardy. And so I think Anna Hall kind of brings all of America back into the multis with a new sense of excitement. It's definitely been like a European-dominated event for a really long time, but occasionally Americans show up, and I just feel like Anna Hall is the future for us. And so this seems like a reasonable step. And when you think about all the events that would probably be most difficult to do in college with a regular workload and, taking classes and heptathlon. Like, how do you fit that many events into your practice schedule? So hopefully she has some more time now moving forward.
Yeah, I don't. I would just say I'm pumped for Budapest. I'm pumped for Paris, and I'm pumped for her push to LA. I think that this is her time to go try to win some golds. It's awesome.
Yeah. I think the other thing too is sort of Kyle brought up the point of just like how does she fit all of this in, and I found it fascinating when I did a podcast with her right after she won the NCAA title of just exactly how her practice schedule is, and she goes into detail on it, so people can go and check that out. Where she talks a bit about how she spends some time with the jumpers on this day, and then the throwers on this day, and then like this is her running day, and so no, it's fascinating how those athletes train. And we see sort of the results of it at the big championships, but there is so much work that goes into it. All right, moving on to the next topic, we've got Euros versus NACACs. Kyle, I love the way that you wrote about this in this week's newsletter. Do you kind of want to break it down? This was the first ever sort of like personality assessment that you ever had within the newsletter. So how did you sort of break it down?
Well, it's just incredible that Euros and NACACs are technically the same equivalency of being area championships, because you go to Munich and you see 60,000 plus fans in the stadium and athletes like bawling, crying after they win an event. And then NACAC, I mean, no one really even knew NACAC was happening until the results started pouring in. It went on any major network, and it was a random guy's YouTube channel. But if you like going to the Bahamas and hanging out on the beach, then it's the perfect event for you. But yeah, I think you look at the times and they're quite comparable actually in a lot of the events, especially, excuse me, in the field and the sprints. And one athlete who I really jumped out after that I saw was Freddie Crittenden. And so Freddie ran 13 flat in the 110 hurdles. So a huge personal best, fourth in the world. This is a guy who came in fifth at USA's. Now, the NACAC area champion, but really like fourth in the entire world. And so, some huge performances there, just not quite the intensity that you see at European championships. It's still a new meet relative. Europeans has been around since pre-World War II, and NACAC, this is, I think, the fourth edition of it. So maybe in 90 years, we'll have the same level of enthusiasm that we're seeing from everyone abroad.
Mac, I guess when you were pouring over the results, like what stood out to you about both meets? Well, one, it was just sort of like which we're going to get to very shortly with the World Athletic Standards, but the bomb being dropped about just like how much these points were worth. It's like you got to play it smart, and some people ended up getting lucky just having committed to the NACAC team ahead of time, and ended up walking away from the weekend with a lot of points.
Yeah, a lot of points, and we're still unsure, I think, of the qualifying process to Worlds. So there are some people that turned down NACAC spots that probably could have won their events, and we think hypothetically could get a qualifier into Worlds for next year, but we're not sure about that yet, unless Kyle or Chris, biggest takeaway.
Not automatic, that's for sure, but it's worth a lot of points.
It's not automatic, but it helps a lot. And I don't think people are going to be turning down those NACAC spots anymore going forward. My biggest takeaway, Munich showed up, and I hope that gives some sort of view into what Budapest is going to be like next year, because that stadium is what we all dream. Like when we complain about everything in the U.S. about like what we want track and field to be in the U.S., that's it right there. That's everything that we want. And I think that we complain so much, or we're so loud, is because we know it's there. We've been over there. We've seen it. We've been in those stadiums. We know it's possible. So seeing the juxtaposition of NACACs versus Europeans, and like how passionate fans are and how in tune they are to the events, it bodes well going forward for international competitions. But obviously what we're doing right now, we're trying to bring that over here to this side of the world.
It kind of makes you hate them, right?
Holding us back, like Kyle, I guess, what do you think is the biggest thing that's holding the U.S. back from like having stadiums that full and people, the ratings or whatever it was for something like this to be that big?
I think a lot of it is just access. Like we see that you look at the TV ratings from the World Championships, prime time on a major channel, and all of a sudden the TV ratings are highest that they've ever been. And, when something is behind paywalls at 1 a.m., it's tough. Like, you're not going to get the same level of enthusiasm. And I think we see the difficulty and the cost of going to different meets, and, how much it costs to get inside the stadium, especially if you live on the other side of the country. And so maybe this is, maybe the rail system in Europe is just a little bit better than in America. This is an infrastructure problem that we're talking about. We got to go to DC to fix this.
All right. So
sorry, but you joke about that, but I think that's actually that's a valid issue. You can actually take rail to Munich from the majority of Western Europe. It's not that difficult to get there, and it's relatively cheap. Getting into Eugene, for example, this summer, damn near impossible. So that is actually an issue. But yeah, marketing, the fans are in tune to the stories of the athletes. They're sponsored over there by tiers of companies. You see a lot of European athletes have multiple logos on their vests and kits. That means their companies are investing in them and probably marketing them. It's a laundry list of stuff that we know what it is.
It doesn't get fixed overnight.
No.
All right. So moving into the big one, and I don't even think it's worth setting a timer on this topic because it's probably what we're going to spend a big bulk of time discussing. So last Friday, as we are kind of getting ready for a fun weekend in Falmouth, we get the press release that World Athletics has announced its qualifying standards for the 2023 World Championships that are going to be held in Budapest. The dates for that are August 19th to 27th, so you can start looking at flights and Airbnbs and hotels now. So the plan all along, I guess, for World Athletics and trying to fill the fields is you have athletes that hit qualifying standards, and then you have people who get in based off their world rankings. And World Athletics' whole goal and hope is that the fields are filled about 50-50, so that there is at least, I think, a bit more value into the world rankings. So what they did this time around was they decided to make the...
Sorry, Chris, I'm gonna interrupt you because we've been peddling this 50-50 thing, and that's come from me, and that's come from someone that I trust-ish. I trust in the sport.
No, it's been said. It's been said.
Oh,
okay,
yeah.
Has that been said? Because I definitely know that I'm the source for you guys for that, and I know where that's come from. So I trust that person, but also that didn't come from Sebco from one of our sit downs with them.
No, I mean, the hope has always been that it's 50-50 and that people start to follow and care about the World Athletics rankings a bit more, which, again, going back, case in point to the conversation that Kyle and I had with him last December when we said, hey, if you were in an elevator with someone, how would you explain the world ranking system? And his explanation went for a little bit longer than what an elevator ride would be, and maybe that is, case in point, sort of the problem. I don't know what floor we were going to, but so if we look at the standards right now, I just pulled them up in front of me. It's 10 flat for the men's 100, and then everything got tougher on the distance side except for the women's 800, which goes, I believe, 0.3 seconds, which is not a whole lot. It could have stayed the same in that case, but we have 144.70 for the 800 men, 334.20 for the 1500, 1307 for the 5K, 2710 for the 10K. That's on the men's side. On the women's side, 403.5 for the 1500, 1457 for the 5K, 3040 for the 10K. The marathon on the U.S. side, 209.40. On the men's side, 209.40. On the women's side, 228 flat. And so that's on the distance side of things, just how tough things got. If we kind of think and see who has it so far. On the men's side, I think it's only Grant Fisher and Galen Rupp have it. On the women's side, it's very few as well. And so these standards are tough. People, I guess their immediate reactions is like, oh, we're only going to have 4 or 5 people competing at the World Championships. No, that's not true. There's more to that. So Kyle, when you were sort of assessing, what was sort of your first initial reactions to seeing these standards come out?
Well, first thought, I was like, wow, that's faster than my 1500 time now. Like, I guess I'm going to have to retroactively start playing to the ranking system. But that's, from what I heard, World Athletics paid a ton of money to some consulting company to help them get the rankings system sorted out. And this was the pitch, and they're committed. Like, they want people to care about the rankings. And, previously, I don't think people cared whether or not you were competing at a category meet or a category F meet. And now, we're going to see coaches, agents, and athletes paying way more attention and strategizing way more about what sort of meets that they're going to be attending. I've already heard from multiple athletes that they're going to be hammering the indoor season a little harder than they had ever before. They didn't realize how much certain meets that take place in the United States are now worth. And so, it changes the dynamic of how athletes are going to structure their season. Now, my problem with it is that the top athletes don't have to do anything different. Like, they're fine. They're going to have no problem. Like, you think Trayvon Bromell is going to be looking, he's not even going to look up what this 100 time is. He doesn't care about 10 flat. Whereas, the athletes who are on that bubble previously, maybe hitting a time, maybe having a high enough ranking, those are the ones that are affected by it. And I think that we're starting to cater the infrastructure of the sport maybe a little bit too much to the back half of the field rather than towards the stars. Like, our interest should be in seeing as many head-to-head matchups as possible, not making the 48th best guy in the world fly around the world trying to chase points.
Now that brings me to Mac. Mac, you've always kind of in our text groups and our group chats, always kind of get a little heated on the side of we got to make this all, fair and cater to sort of that backpack. So how did you feel when you saw this? Because that is sort of I guess one of the qualms that you have with the rankings.
Well, I think you might be confusing me. I don't think that I really advocate for catering to the back half.
No, you do. You don't. You do the opposite. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the finals are generally the same every single year. It doesn't matter what the qualification process is. I just wish World Athletics would explain their thought process a little bit more publicly so we knew what the long-term goal was instead of us just guessing every 6 months, oh, this is what they're trying to do, I think. I like what I think they're trying to do. I think if we went away with, I know I've been kind of banging this drum, if we went away with all rabbits from DL meets and it was just straight up racing, that's the best product that we can put on TV. And if you move that system down to the USA level, I think that's better for the US market and everything like that. I don't think that this is an issue. I wish, like Kyle said, that the best athletes were racing each other more, but I don't. There's nothing that they can do right now about that, unless you mandated an amount of meets, or if you went away with the auto time completely and just made it points. But it almost seems like they're going that way, and I'm actually okay with that. I'm okay with them going strictly to points if they tell us how they're doing it, and it seems like it's relatively fair. I don't think everything actually has to be completely fair. I just want the product on TV to be the best thing possible.
Well, Mac, I do think that you just touched on a counter proposal, which is rather than just having one and done, maybe there's some level of consistency that is required. So maybe rather than these times being what they are, they slow them down a tiny bit and we say, hey, you've got to hit it 2 or 3 times. And so that way we're rewarding athletes for doing it again, and we're incentivizing more racing rather than athletes who are able to race immediately when the window opens and then say, see you in a year.
Well, because you raised that point about just sort of the example that you gave within the newsletter. City McLaughlin won't have any added incentive to run the Diamond League circuit with an added emphasis on world rankings because she'll want, once again, run the standard. But, I think what you didn't even realize while writing that out was that City McLaughlin already has the standard for next year in that one race that she did after the World Championship. So technically, you won't have to see her again until USA's next year if she really wanted to.
I did realize, and I also know that she already won world championships. So she didn't even need to do that one race. She's good. And so, look, I'm not holding it against the athletes. I would never do that. That's not her fault that she doesn't want to race the Monaco Diamond League. That's the sports issue. And I know that there's often this idea of like, hey, if we just throw more and more money at it, but the amount of money that you're going to get from prize money in the sport is just never going to compare to the bonus you get from showing up at a championship. And so, we do need to force athletes to have the best interest of the sport in their minds. And, I think currently having the standard doesn't influence the top athletes in any way. They're not going to do anything different. But again, like the bottom half will.
So, Kyle, I guess the big thing that kind of when we had the example of how confusing these world ranking system can be was the men's 1500 at the U.S. Championships. Do you think anything that was changed today made that a little bit easier to understand? So we don't have that situation again where you have, Johnny Gregoric finishing in sixth place, kind of confused afterwards whether or not he made the team.
Yeah, I think the only thing that it's going to really change is that the athletes and the fans are going to pay more attention to the rankings at the start of the race. Now we're going to enter races with maybe even fewer guys having the standard. And so when they're lining up, you're checking beforehand. I think on start lists, rather than just saying who has the standard, they need to start saying on the start list what everyone's ranking is. And, making that more apparent to the audience. Now, look, there's a reason why Eric Holt went to NACAC, and it's because he needed the points. And who's now ranked high enough to go next year? Eric Holt. And so, again, like this is going to influence athlete schedules. And next year when lining up, the guys who don't have the high enough ranking and just think like, oh, like if I finish in the top 3, that'll be enough points for me to go, hopefully. And it's like, no, the math is going to be crunched beforehand in the future. And I think what's going to end up happening is something that we've seen a lot of times in Olympic years, which is athletes are going to work together to make things go fast. And those athletes are going to be the ones without the standard on race day.
Do you think this still, we still ran into the issue though, like casual Joe Schmo tunes into his first ever track meet and watches USA's having to explain the world ranking system on that day before, 10 minutes before the start of the men's 1500 meter final. Is it something that is like easy to do? No, I don't think so.
Well, we laughed because this year at the World Championships, Sydney McLaughlin was lined up for the final in the 400 hurdles, and her world ranking pops on the screen, and she's number 2 in the world. And it's like right then and there, we've now confused the casual viewer.
It just, it doesn't make any sense to me. Another change that was made for 2023 is you can now use a mile time to qualify for the 1500 and road times to qualify for the 1500, the 5K, the 10K. Mac, do we like this move, adding the road qualifiers for those events?
I don't think so. I like to think of those as like the ancillary events around the sport of track and field. I think that adds to the confusion, and then it just complicates like the qualification process into what these meets and races, how they get the platinum standard, gold standard, whatever these, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 things. I don't necessarily love it because I think it, again, confuses the new fan. To your point earlier, I do hope that there's like a way that most athletes in a U.S. final, for example, can have a high enough ranking that we don't have to do the math. So instead of everyone having this like slow auto queue, there's enough people ranked in the final that it shouldn't be an issue unless it's like a super dark horse, underdog, which I guess Holt would, was going to be anyway. But I think moving forward, if we're going to go to the points wise, hopefully like previous years, you're going to have at least 3/4 of the field having a high enough ranking so that whoever finishes in the top 3, it's not like, oh crap, do they have enough points? Hopefully there's some sort of threshold wherever most people are going to be okay.
Now, Kyle, the drum that you bang on all the time is obviously the too many meets problem. Like there's just way too many opportunities out there for the athletes. Does any of this help solve that? Because what you're going to hear about in the coming months from USA Track and Field, at least like for next year, is they've done this Journey to Gold series in the lead up to the Tokyo Olympics and in the lead up to this year's World Championships. And those meets, I guess, like are designated to have, quite a bit of points because they're, high enough like on the World Athletics like label. So there's and they want to incentivize the pro runners to go head to head often. And so the purpose of these meets that are going to be on this schedule whenever it comes out is for these athletes to race against each other. It's just more meets on the schedule. Kyle, obviously we know how you felt about just more meets. How does this go hand in hand with the world rankings? How would you do?
I think that we're ninth in best athlete in the country head to head a lot and develop a nice rivalry because they're going to go to the Journey of the Goat meets. It makes sense for them to go. It just, again, like there's no added of the best to do it. Actually, there was a brief period of time there where there was a misunderstanding of this year's qualification period. It was actually those on like the World Athletics watch list that had like much stricter standards of like the type of meets that they had to attend, and just like basically saying like you can't qualify at pop-up meets anymore. You have to go to like official area and federation meets. And personally, I think that if what is required of those countries on the watch list, if that was extended to the entire world, that it would be a painful thing at first, but in the long term, it would be good for the sport, because then you would know where you have to compete rather than it just saying like, I'm going to compete on any random high school track on any given night.
No, I mean, when I saw that sort of the little misinformation that was going out for a bit, which you were kind of for a brief period of time, for a couple of minutes, guilty of amplifying, and it would have been good, actually. Not that bad. I would have been in favor of just like, oh, you really simplify the schedule in that sense of just like you said, knowing, what meets matter, who's going to be at them, and you can bank on some of the stars being at those. So, yeah, I mean, this is definitely not the last time that we're going to be hearing about the world athletic standards for 2023. We'll be talking about this a lot, I think, in the lead up to Budapest. So we'll move on to a quick recap of what we got up to last week. We headed up to Cape Cod to cover the 50th running of the Falmouth Road Race. It was awesome. It was my first time going out there. My first time both there for the mile and the 7 mile race. Kyle has previously won the mile twice. Mac has raced it before. So it was cool to see just sort of like another one of those really high level sort of like community driven and connected events where you have the people from the local community come out to this high school track and witness for them what, they don't see that often is just like a sub 4 mile. And then on the women's side, Nikki Hiltz taking the win in 4:28. So that was a great time. And then on Sunday, the big race, Ben Flanagan making it 3 Falmouth titles in a row. At this point, he is in an exclusive club of 3-time winners. I think the most ever wins is 4 on the men's side. Joni won this thing like 6 times, so he's got his work cut out for him in that sense. But Ben Flanagan just showing that he owns the streets of Falmouth. And then on the women's side, Kira D'Amato running the race for the first time ever in the middle of a marathon training block, getting ready for the Berlin Marathon, comes out, pulls away from Edna Kiplagat and wins it. It was a really fun day. And then afterwards we did our live show after the road race. Kyle, what were some of the biggest things that stood out to you from Falmouth weekend?
Oh, Kyle.
Yeah, I think first off, really more from a CITIUS Mag perspective, this was a big moment for us. Previously, the Falmouth Mile was never, you couldn't watch that. It didn't exist. Like there was no live stream or ability to be able to hop on and watch. And instead, Mac, and you can speak to this more, like decided that we were going to try something new out and we are going to figure it out. And now, I think like 13,000 people have been able to watch the Falmouth Mile, something that, we didn't previously get to do back in my day.
Yeah, no, I don't. Back in my day too, I would say I participated in those mile races. I don't know if you could call that racing, but yeah, no, it was. I probably lost just like a year of my life on Friday or Saturday. Probably the first meet that's ever been streamed via Starlink connection. I guess that was cool, but that also caused us a massive headache. And 15 minutes before the race is starting, we're scrambling for cords and stuff like that. I will say Ryan, the production teacher at Falmouth High School, absolute savior to CITIUS Mag and the stream and Falmouth Road, the racing community there. That guy saved our asses. That was fun. There was, a lot of other things that I think I wanted to do and we thought that we were going to be able to do. Unfortunately, those plans were changed 24 hours out, and that's okay. That, we got things to do next time. That's like, different looking graphics, that's different cameras, that's different, a lot of things that I was really like happy and proud to like be able to show we couldn't do. So like that kind of sucks. But it was fun. We had a time, we had, I guess, the bar we're trying to get at, we had a clock on the screen and we had results and you could see people finishing. So, and the stream didn't die. So I guess, if that's the day one, first one, happy about it.
People know what they pay for.
Yeah, exactly. But overall, it was a great weekend. I loved seeing just sort of I've been to Sir Walter Myler before. You see how the community rallies around just a big event and a race like that. And it sort of has me just sort of making a mental checklist. It's like, oh, I got to get out to Beach to Beacon one year and to Peachtree, and just checking those boxes as we go, like the best American road races that are out there. So that's something that I'm looking forward to. So here's another sort of thing is, Ben Flanagan and winning Falmouth 3 years in a row. It's at this point like he starts to be a little bit synonymous with this race. Is this something that can be played up more like in years to come, I guess, Kyle? Like, I guess how can we make the Falmouth road race or just any other sort of road race when someone just keeps winning? Because we've got Greta Weiss, I think, over the years won the New York City Marathon and a bunch of road races here in New York just a bunch of times, and it's sort of like that person gets attached to that race. And I feel like we're in the middle of that with Ben. How can fans lean into that a bit more?
I think that you just always have to lean into the history of events at this point. Like, you go back and you read some of the names that have also won the Falmouth Road Race. I mean, this is one of the best and oldest races in the United States. Like, it's such a core part of American road racing culture starting in 1973. And, the history with Bill Rogers and Frank Shorter and the long list of Olympians who've competed and have won it. And now Ben Flanagan's name is right there alongside them. And so I always think it's great when we have new events that pop up, that innovate, that try new things. Really do have to protect the history that we have, the baseball fan in me, who it's like, the old sport of it. And now you just see that all-time list, and Ben's name is amongst some heavy hitters.
And then we've got, on the women's side, Kira D'Amato taking the win. And today the fields got announced for the Berlin Marathon. She's at the top of that list, which is actually pretty cool, because then afterwards we kind of broke a little bit of news that had been leaking out and confirmed it with her on our show that she will be running the Berlin Marathon. But in addition to that, she's targeting her own American record, which is really cool when an athlete is that confident. But at the same time, like, it's Kira D'Amato. If she would have said, like, I'm trying to PR, that's the same exact thing as trying to break her American record. But then in addition to that, Sarah Hall will also be running that race. So that's a big race to look forward to next month, that's fun because for the most part I think of Berlin constantly, and it's just been the Eliud Kipchoge or the Kenenisa Bekele show for years to come. And now to be a little bit more invested in the women's race, especially with 2 American stars there, I think it's something special for fans to tune into on September 25th, worth staying up for or waking up early for. So that wraps Falmouth recap. Now let's hit just a little bit more of the inside sort of CITIUS Mag, what we've been up to and what we've had going on. I want to start with Mac, because Mac, you ran for the first time since the World Championships. Everyone has obviously seen videos of you running with the camera throughout the outdoor track season alongside the athletes. But what I guess they didn't realize was that you were doing a lot of that with what was it, like strained navicular, broken navicular?
Yeah, I would say I definitely had a reaction or stress fracture in my left navicular. I have screws in my right one, so I know what it feels like. I hope I didn't do enough damage, that I need surgery. I took a month off. I'm hoping it's a bit better. We'll see. Yesterday was my first run. I did 4 miles. I feel like absolute trash today. But I went back. I did 3 more today and biked for 30 minutes. So I have some dreams of getting back into some sort of running fitness. I don't know what that is. It's definitely not like Mile Shaper. I don't want to like go compete or anything like that. But I think I have enough time between when I retired and now that I'm like, all right, it kind of sounds fun to go work out, once a week and run, I don't know, 40 to 60 miles a week. So that's kind of where my headspace is at. If I feel the same way in 2 months, that'll be surprising me, but that's where I'm at right now.
I feel like you and I have gone back and forth at times, and like we get competitive with each other even now in retirement. And Sam was saying that me running Falmouth at a half decent clip probably got you all fired up and motivated.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm like, why didn't Kyle run faster? He ran 5:15 pace. That's not. I'm like, come on.
It was hot.
I'm like, I know it was. I know, but that's me. I mean, you know how much. I mean, we're milers. We just absolutely disrespect anything that's longer than a mile. So I'm like, why aren't you running 4:45 pace? Come on.
So at the start of the race, the elite men go off a few minutes before the general public and the sub-elite men. And I couldn't decide what to do. And Adam Fogg and Willie Fink, the Under Armour guys, were talking about like how they're going to go, they're going to start at 5:50 pace and work their way down. And I was like, they're going to get caught. I can't run with those guys. So I started behind with the general public and finishing like a second apart. Like we would have been perfect training partners with them the whole time. Instead, I ran the entire thing completely by myself. But the milers coming back the following day to get a nice 7-mile workout in. Falmouth tradition.
Yes. Unlike any other.
I saw you posted on your Instagram, Kyle, about just sort of like the weird place that you find yourself, where it's like too slow to keep up with the elites, a little too fast for the sub-elite category, or just like the normal human beings.
Yeah.
But I guess the way you worded it, some people thought that you were just like, taking shots at people calling just the general public slow.
Dude, the rule is if you're slower than me, you're a slow person. And if you're faster than me, then you're like the fastest person in the world. Like I am the bar, and my fitness move, the barometer measure the rest of the world changes. And if you're not as good as I am, then God bless you.
We got a request within the chat from Ford Palmer, who says, talk about Don's wedding during the extra segment. Is that what you've got coming up, Kyle?
2-time Olympian Don Cabral is getting married this weekend. We're having a big reunion just along the Delaware River. He actually texted a hilarious group of like 20-something guys saying like, yo, we're starting at the Saturday's run pre-wedding at this point. And I'm going through the list of names, and it's like, a who's who from 10 years ago. So really excited to see how everyone's holding up and what sort of fitness we've got in the pre-wedding run.
What are the top 4 milers on that list? Like who are they, and like how fast are they going nowadays?
It's just NJ and Y from 5 years ago.
Johnny's still the fastest.
Johnny still got us. Yeah. Johnny's like walking into my house at any second right now. Getting ready to make the drive over. But
all right.
Yeah, I mean, the pre-wedding run is a great tradition.
Yeah. All right, Chris, what do we have next? Where are we going next? And what do I have to buy flights to?
Yeah, you've got to make your way back here to New York. until we open up a CITIUS Mag office here in New York, that would make things so much easier, that Kyle and I could just go to, and you can just move here and then commute to. We've got Fifth Avenue Mile coming up. That's in 2 weeks. So we're looking forward to covering those races. The fields are going to be stacked as always. It's where people come to close out their season. Jake Whiteman is the top pro that's been announced so far on the men's side, because he's been on a tear on the track, and now it's time to bring the show to the roads. So expect to see him there, along with some of the other obviously big New Balance stars, because it is a New Balance race. We'll be covering the race live, and we're hoping to put together some other events around that weekend. In the meantime, there'll be new episodes coming out of the CITIUS Mag podcast. I'm finally back and recording new episodes in the coming weeks. So subscribe to that and check it out. We've also got new episodes of Out of the Blocks with Jasmine Todd and Caitlin Hutchison coming out over the next couple days. That's some pretty good episodes. They've got Melissa Jefferson, Erica Bugard, and a couple other special guests. So really cool conversations. I've gotten a chance to listen through some of those. And then, of course, as always, subscribe to the Lap Count. Make sure to get it in your inbox every Wednesday. Visit thelapcount.com. Just enter your email. It takes 1 second, and you can get your fix of all these big headlines and big storylines. Share it with a friend. Share it with a loved one. And we'll do this again next week to touch on the biggest stories in the sport. You guys have any final words?
What are you looking forward to most tomorrow in Lausanne?
Oh yeah, that's true. We've got Lausanne Diamond League tomorrow.
How do we pronounce it? What is the official decision? CITIUS Mag version of Lausanne.
I say Lausanne, and I've been there twice. Yeah, and that's how I pronounce it when I was
a resident.
Yeah. It's a great track, honestly. I mean, the sprinters tend to run faster. I don't know what the forecast is calling for. Sometimes it could get a little chilly. We've seen that in previous years where the temperature can really mess with the performances there. But at the same time, we've seen the likes of Shelly-Ann Fraser-Price run, 10.6 there, which she's confidently been saying that she believes she can run faster than 10.6. And in the same way, Noah Lyles is confident that he can even run faster. So both the men's 200 with Noah Lyles, Arian Knighton, and Michael Norman, and the women's 100 with the Jamaican stars of Shelly-Ann Fraser-Price, Sharika Jackson, and Elaine Thompson-Herah. I think those are at the top of my list of events to watch. But then you two guys being 1,500 guys, I'm sure you have that 1,500 circled with Jakob, Ali, Timothy Chariot. How do you guys see that race playing out?
Yeah, I think, like we've seen in all championship races, now we're going to throw some rapids in there and not have any prelims. It's going to go fast. I mean, you're looking at this start list, and it's a who's who of medalists. And now we're just lining up with, I hate to say it, a little bit less on the line, but what makes that exciting is with less on the line, there's a greater opportunity to really take a risk in the middle of the race and try to open things up and make a run at it. And so some great opportunities there. I don't think there's any Americans on the start list, but we do have plenty of American-based athletes. So excited to see how those guys compete. And I'm interested to see if Jakob is going for it, it being a world record. I feel like now anytime when he lines up, I don't necessarily think he's going to do it, but the question is he going for it? Is that on his mind?
I think that this is his race to lose. I mean, that sounds like cheap to say, there's no substance to that, but he's having a year, and it's going to be fast. They're going to go through in 151. I'm curious if he's going to pull from right there. Rabbit's going to drop off. I think it's going to be him. But Timmy C. Chariot has been looking better as the season has progressed. So, but I don't know if he's confident enough to press Jacob or control the race after the Rabbit drops out. I think if Jakob controls the race after the Rabbit drops, it's his race to squeeze. Even though he lost worlds that way, I think he's in better 15 shape now than he was then. And yeah, look for some PBs out of a lot of the middle of the field. I think you're going to see, if the weather works, this is going to be one of those races where it's like 12 people walk out with PBs.
I do want to clarify something real quick. So it's not that I don't think Jakob is capable of getting the world record. I think it's two things. One, it's very soon after Europeans. You know, he just ran the 1500 and the 5K. So maybe looking a little bit later, maybe in Zurich would be the better opportunity. But more so, if you're going to go after that record, you need help. And I don't know if anyone else is ready to run 26.37 right now.
Yeah, no. You're right.
All right. So you can watch the Lausanne Diamond League tomorrow. We'll have a recap newsletter going out. The CITIUS Mag newsletter will be going out. So if you want to get that, citiusmag.substack.com. Check that out. That does it for the first episode of the Lap Count Live. We'll see you guys again next Thursday, and we'll run this back. Mac, hit the music.
Over and out.